What could possibly be going on here? What I have is a couple of pieces of pipe, coupler, and a leak tester. I'm actually gonna need a couple more couplers, but what could we be doing? Oh, you may have noticed. Rave 5X Mega Freeze, sorry. And some Aquanet, tried and true. Well, in case you were wondering what we're doing, we're gonna have a little fun. What I have is pressure gauge on a line. We're gonna build a little contraption, something that goes a little bit like this. And then we're gonna see what kind of pressure we can make before we have decompression. But what are we going to use? Why are we doing this? Why do we care? Well, I don't really feel like clamping anymore. I want to see how much just hairspray and a good coupler and a prepped pipe with a bead rolled in it can hold as far as boost. Stay tuned for this. This is going to be fun. Okay, so I've got a variety of couplers here. Really important part of this process is you need to prep your pipes and your couplers. We've got our beads rolled in the pipes, and we've got cheap engine coupler and two generic, oh, this one's a PRE coupler. So let's go ahead and get these prepped. Just gonna get my rag. Get them nice and clean. You can see how much dirt came off just that one. There you go. These are all used couplers, so we're not reaching into the new parts bins for doing rando product tests, but they should still provide. So we're going to use, I think, this PRE one as our center. We'll see which one feels like it fits tighter. This one feels like it might actually fit a little tighter, so we might use this one. So first we're going to go ahead and just put our coupler on. As you can see, you've got a good snug fit. Oh, we need to prep the pipes too. Prep everything. And this is going to be our launch pad end, so we'll go ahead and actually these are super tight. There we go, got it on there. End number one. End number two. And we'll go ahead and get those clamped down. We're just using my favorite tried and true Norton clamp. One thing to note on clamping, you always want to make sure that you have part of your coupler on both sides of the clamp. If the clamp was all the way up over the edge, it wouldn't clamp very well. One, For this next bit, we're going to go ahead and spray this coupler with some of my Aquanet here. This is my tried and true coupler spray. We're getting a little low. And what's fun about this is now, not only will the coupler go on, it'll go on right, like easier than normal. So we're going to go ahead and put that on, get some clamps on here. I'm going to clamp it first. Show you what we've got going here. Okay, so clamp the first one. Now we're going to put the other side on. Go ahead and put the clamp over it first. Now we're going to go ahead and clamp this for now. Get them both good and tight. So we have our pressure vessel. Essentially what we do is we just hook air up to this guy and we can regulate how much pressure goes into the vessel with this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this clamp back off and see how much pressure this can hold just using Aquanet as a clamp. So because we won't have this clamp, that pipe is going to want to just shoot that way. So we'll set up a catcher's mitt or something over here to grab it. But we're going to see how much force. So I'm going to wait about a half an hour, let this Aquanet dry a little bit, and then we'll take the clamp off, and then we'll go ahead and hit this with how much pressure. So it looks like it is exactly 1:30 right now, 1:30 on the dot. So we're going to wait till 2 o'clock, and at exactly 2 o'clock, we're going to go ahead, take the clamp off, and see how much pressure just Aquanet will hold. It's going to be fun. And then after we do that, we're going to see how much pressure Rave will hold. Now this isn't a proper scientific experiment. For it to be proper scientific, we would have to do a control with no spray, and then do spray. We'd have to actually not just do a control, we'd have to do like a whole bunch of controls. So you'd want to do 10, 20, 30, average them all together, then do 10, 20, 30, then do 10, 20, 30. But as you can see, the amount of time that would require is pretty tremendous. So if our results are absolutely shocking, we can try to repeat them, but we won't be able to do a proper scientific study on this. We're just having fun. So I went to Jack in the Box to get a taco while I was waiting for this half hour, and we got about 5 minutes left here. So I decided to err on the side of safety here, and I'm going to build a little bracket to kind of hold this so that we don't end up shooting ourselves in the face with this thing. And additionally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hard mount this side. I'm going to take this clamp off instead of this one, and this is going to be on a slip. So I'm going to put the clamp about here so that when it bursts, it can just slide down the, basically, it'll just slide down until it gets to that clamp. So that's the theory, at least. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. Put that right about there. Something like that should work. Okay, got some brackets ready. So we're just gonna screw these down. Close there, this one. Right there. We're raising the clock here. Something like this. That should hopefully allow it to slide enough without so you can see it's still mobile here. I'll loosen it a little bit. There we go. All right, now we'll go ahead and tighten this one down. So that's not going to move, but this one still can. So when it goes, so here we go. Take this clamp off. The rig is ready. It's prepped. Let's get the glass bottle out of the way here. Here we are. We are hooked up and ready to go. The time, we passed by 3 minutes. So that's okay. We're at 0 pressure. Zero pressure valve is closed. Let me go ahead and... Oh no, I crushed my taco. Alright, this is going to be kind of fun. We have no idea what it's going to do. I want to try to get the whole thing in frame. Along with our pressure gauge. So let's see what we get. Probably not going to be a lot. All right, let's go ahead and open the valve. There's some pressure. 2, 5. She's gonna go. So that was about 7 psi before it finally went. Not bad. Not bad. So that was the Aquanet, 7 psi. Sounds about right. So that was cooler than I thought. It probably wasn't the explosion that I'm sure some of you watching were hoping for. At the end of this experiment, we might do something a little bit more aggressive. I like the rig, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and re-prep this. So definitely we're going to need to do a control. I just had a thought. So I'm going to go ahead and prep it, re-prep it with just spraying down both the pipe and the coupler with brake clean, get it all nice and prepped, and then we're going to put it back together and repeat the test as a control. So I'm going to say 5, yield at 7 is what I'm going to say, because at 5 we started seeing motion, and then it yielded once we got to 7. So, and then we'll do rave and see where it starts to move and then where it yields, and same with the control. God, these tacos are terrible. Basically, I've reworked the rig to have 2 clamps on the firm part. I've prepped the pipe using brake cleaner and a rag, and then put the coupler on. It's dry currently. There's no hairspray in here. And this one's still loose. So in about a half hour from now, and let's go ahead and we'll set this thing. So looks like we're at about 240 right now, but we'll just go ahead and use the old dial, and at the 6 we will go and see where it yields on a control. Okay, it's been a half an hour. Let's test a control on the new rig. In fact, we're gonna go ahead and zero out. Run number 1, control. Dial it to 0. All right, we're open. Let's see where we end up. Two. So it's 2.5. 5. We're yielding. It's gonna go at 5. Yep. So that was 5. Pretty solid. Had a good cannon shot on that one. All right, so 5 on the control. I like it. So we're gonna go ahead and see if the Aquanet will do better than 5 in a half an hour. So let's get her sprayed down and get it back together. Time to see what happens. So this is Aquanet, new rig, test 1, Aquanet. Turn her down, open valve. All right, let's see if we can get to 5. Ooh. She went hard, right at about 5, so no major change there in the Aquanet. Let's see if we can feel it. It doesn't feel sticky at all. In fact, it still feels wet. Yeah, it's still wet, which is interesting. I'm wondering if we're gonna have to let this sit overnight. Because yeah, that's still wet. See that? Interesting. Well, let's see if we can get it cleaned off. Cleaned off and try some rave. It's interesting that the Aquanet stayed wet. Well, let's spray it with some rave. Get her shook up here. It smells good. I always liked the way rave smelled. Come on. No, we'll get it later. Okay, we're good and schmood now. Okay, now let's clamp her. I live my life a half an hour at a time because that's how long it takes to do these tests. Okay, this time off. All the way down. No mistakes. Okay, rig is hot. Here we go. Let's try this again. Oops, down. Open valve. Okay, valve's open. We're at 0. Let's see where we can go here. Here we go. 2. That was quick. That was violent. Violent at 2 on the rave. And it's super wet. So that's what I was kind of anticipating. We need this stuff to dry. Well, I don't like my results. So what I'm going to do is see if, so far the control is winning, 5, 3, and 2. That's because we're not getting dry, so it's still staying wet. So what I need to do is figure out how to get this stuff to dry in my rig that's closed. So I think what I need to do is take the caps off while I'm waiting the half an hour. So we're going to go ahead and respray with the rave with the caps off and see if that gets us where we're trying to go here. Got my caps back on. Rig is live. We had the caps off and should be dry now. So let's see what happens. Alright, here we go. We want to get this off to the side. Or better, once again, now we're live. Start, there we go. Ooh. Almost immediate. 0 psi. Yeah, I don't think that this is worth a nickel. Rave 5X Mega Freeze. Garbage. Get it? Get it? in the garbage. Okay, so far our control is winning. We can't let the control win. We know that this stuff works. We know it. We know it works. So what's it gonna take to make, it even feels sticky. Like it feels tacky. It's interesting. I wonder if, I'm gonna leave this with Aquanet on it overnight and see, with the caps off, Aquanet, see what happens. Been sitting all night. Let's get this all set up here and see what we can see. Alright, rig is ready. Make sure we're zeroed. I guess the valve's open now. Alright, let's see what happens. Oh. Okay, here we go. Time to see Aquanet overnight test. Let's see if we can get any pressure in her. 2, 4, 5. We're moving. Took 5. What's interesting is you can see on the pipe, get the glare out, you can see where the clamp was and where the hairspray actually was on the clamp. I'm trying to decide exactly what I want to do. I'm thinking I might cut the beads off of these, at least cut the bead off of this one, and just see if we put a clamp on it, when it'll burst, because it should, if there's no bead, it should still burst on this point. So if we'll be at way higher pressure than 5 psi, but if I spray it versus not sprayed with no bead, what's it going to yield at with a clamp? And what I'll do is I'll set my gun to a specific clutch setting to get a consistent amount of tightness, or at least somewhat consistent. I just made a new pipe because, yeah, new pipe. Again, no bead on that side, bead on this side, so it should still yield consistently off of this pipe. So I think that I can say that hairspray on its own is not an adequate clamp, and I think everyone would agree, but I needed to test it anyway. So what we did find out is the hairspray doesn't hurt as a clamp. So the control versus the Aquanet, we saw a very similar burst pressure. And that's important because once the Aquanet had dried, it didn't hurt anything. So it's definitely not hindering performance. And it helps when you were able to lubricate. Sorry, I pulled this out of the garbage. I couldn't be wasting a whole can of spray. But when you lubricate the coupler, it goes on smoother. It's easier to install, easier to move around, easier to manipulate the pipes. So basically, like when you get the pipe on there and you need to turn it, say it's a 90-degree bend or something, and you want to turn it and arrange it, having a little bit of lubrication in there is going to help you do that and make your job easier, especially if it's not hurting anything. But we want to see if it helps. So I've made the smooth pipe. Everything's cleaned out here. We're going to go ahead and put that on and see what the burst pressure is on the smooth pipe. And we're not going to put a ton of force on there because I don't want to burst either other side, and there's beads rolled here, rolled there, rolled there. But we do just want to put enough pressure to see if we get better clamping with hairspray versus with the control. So we're going to set our gun on a 3, and we're just going to rattle till it goes till it rattles. So there you go. Mark. Mark there. So you can see we have a mark to tell where our yield happens. And let's see what this does. And what we're doing is we're just going to see what pressure it begins to yield at. Because that's really what is going to tell us what kind of pressure it can hold. So 14 psi we started to yield, and that was a good one. I'm excited. So we're gonna try the rave first, even though we decided we hated it. Stupid cat fell. All right, so we've got the rave. Hit it good with the rave. We're going to take the end cap off. I want this to be able to dry. Let's go to the line. Oh man, we bounced our whole rig. Alright, we're on our line, just like before. So we'll draw a new line. Once this dries out in about an hour or so, we'll come back and test it. All back together. Make sure we don't have any pressure. Okay, so this test, rave, it's been sitting. So let's see what pressure it yields at. Remember, the control yielded around 14. We'll get the exact result as soon as we can. I want to move this again. I just don't want to knock it off the wall because it's going to get violent here. Let's see if we can get everything in the shot. All right. 10, nothing. 15, nothing. 20, I'm hearing a leak. We're leaking at 20. We're leaking, but we're not yielding. All right, I'm gonna move back a little bit. We're getting spicy here. We're yielding at 22, 23. Here we go. That was a good shot. So, we yielded at about 23 psi. So that's a solid 7 psi higher with the same amount of clamping force, with just the difference being the rave. So that's what this test was supposed to show. And you know, they say if you go into a test looking for a result, you'll find it. Well, we found it. So we're gonna cross out all this crap here. We don't care about any of that. Rave was 23, control was 15. I gotta check that on the video. Oops, sorry, control was 15. So I think it's time to do Aquanet, right? See if we can get a little more than 23 out of her. Aquanet time. Running out of my Aquanet. There we go. Get it to clamp. Okay, guns on 3. Go ahead and mark it, let it dry for a few hours. Come back, my marker stopped working, but we'll get a new marker. We'll let it dry for a few hours and we'll see what Aquanet will do. I must say, blowing stuff up really makes the day go by. So we sprayed this, put it on, let it dry. It's been a few hours. Let's get her tightened back down here. And again, I've been letting it dry with the cap off so that airflow can get inside the pipe. They seem with the caps on to not want to dry. So, time to do this. Let's do this again. No yield. 20, no yield. Yielded at 20. That one knocked this side back too. Holy cow. We had some force there. Whew. All right. Well, it looks like the Rave actually won. Yielding up around 23. This was 20. Interesting. So we're 15, 20, 23. Now again, obviously, if you're doing this on a car, you're going to both tighten that clamp a lot more, and you're going to have a bead if you know what you're doing. Doing it without a bead is just asking for a failure, a yield. Having a bead really helps. You can see none of these other clamps ever had an issue. I'm pretty confident if we tightened this down to what I normally would tighten them to, it probably wouldn't have yielded shy of about 25, maybe 30 pounds. And then from there, if we put a bead in it, these clamps with these kind of couplers on a 3-inch pipe will hold well into the 50 psi range without yielding. I know a lot of people like T-bolt clamps, but these are 100% sufficient for the kind of boost pressures that we see, as long as your pipe is dressed up adequately. Add a little hairspray to help both get the pipe on and to help with a little bit of extra adhesion. And as you can see, you don't end up with nearly as many failures, at least not failures at as low a PSI as we were seeing here. So yeah, it's a pretty good test. Just for the sake of fun, I'm going to tighten this down a little more with nose spray, and we'll do it on a 7 on my gun and see how much pressure it gets to. And I'm going to add a little smoke inside the pipe as well, just so that it has a cooler effect, you know, for the clout. Actually, we're just gonna, yeah, we'll do some. So we're putting smoke in the machine. You can see coming out here. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that down. All right, now we're gonna take this whole thing outside. So, all right, here we go. And 20, we're sliding, we're starting to yield. And set it down and just let it do work here at about 2 more psi. Around 30. Time bomb, here it goes. That's cool. Okay, ran it up to a 9 on the gun. Let's see if we can see the gauge. See where we end up here. $10, $20, no yield at all. $30, we now have a bomb. $35, it's starting to yield. We lost the valve. It's got a little creator valve on the back. Apparently the valve pressure only goes to 45. All right, since there'd be vibrations and things in a car, let's hit it with a stick. It's not working. Well, how are we gonna get this thing to go? No, there's no beat. We won't go any higher without hitting the bypass. I have an idea. Alright, so what we have now is a leak down tester, and what we're going to do is go ahead and hook up our air to it, and this will go to 100 psi in theory, and I can get a little further away. So we're at 5, 20, 35, 40. We're at 45, holding pretty good. Oh, she's sliding. I'm gonna go ahead and put the camera. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. So that was 45 psi. So my buddy Kendall wanted to see a T-bolt. So let's get a T-bolt on here and see what a T-bolt does. All right, so give it a little bit of a turn after the number 9, and let's see where we end up. I'm gonna call the numbers out. It might be a little more aggressive. We'll see. All right, here we go. So now, well, I was still pressurized. So we're at 40. We're already sliding at 40. You can hear it leaking at 40. It might not yield, but it wants to. We'll go up a little bit to 45. All right, here's 50. Definitely sliding at 50. A lot, 80%. So you've got a leak somewhere. Obviously the leak is out the T-bolt. And that's one of the things about T-bolts is they don't really seal very well. In fact, I'm going to turn down real quick. And I'm going to go grab some soapy water. And we're going to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to give it about 20. And you can see it's just flowing out right there. Right at where the clamp goes onto the pipe. And this is right where you'll see the pipes deform when you tighten the clamp enough. And there's so much air leaking right there, I can't even build pressure in the pipe. And that's the downside to T-bolts. So while it's still held at 50 pounds, it's leaking profusely. And that's what they're gonna do. Yeah, so you can see this leak down gauge isn't the best, but effectively the needle should be at the same point. So if I go up to like 30, we should be at about 70 on this one. 40. See? So it's all of the pressure is just leaking out of the pipe. So I can't even get pressure in the pipe to do this test because it's T-bolt. Fun stuff.
Let's tell you, you get 20% leakage. So.
Yeah. T-bolt clamps suck. So that was a fun little test, and pretty much proved everything that I already knew and like to tell people. But it's always good to actually test it, find out, you know, make sure that what you're telling people isn't just something that you're assuming. So I always tell people the hairspray helps. It helps both get the silicone coupler on and it helps give you a little more tension. I always tell people bead rolls help. As you can see, none of the beads yielded during the test, which again, just tells us that these are stronger than a non-bead. And I tell people that T-bolt clamps should probably just go in the trash. This is even a steel pipe. I could have potentially put even more pressure on this, but the fact that it was already yielding and you can kind of see the coupler down at the bottom is flared out. Like, I'm guessing if I took this off, this pipe's probably out of round now, even with how little tension I put on this. And I've heard people say, well, as long as you torque it to spec, blah, blah, blah. I mean, realistically, like, the fact that it's going to require deforming the pipe, deforming the coupler, causing problems, and it is all the way on, like the pipe goes clear to the other side of it. So, you know, if I had a bead rolled, yeah, sure, it might work okay, but these are expensive and they're not any better. I mean, we saw this thing start to yield at the same pressure that this one started to yield at, and this one just starts leaking like crazy. So it didn't really, like, it was leaking so bad that it didn't obviously blow the pipe off because there wasn't any pressure in the pipe anymore. So just kind of an interesting, you know, interesting tests, interesting things to look at, and just trying to, you know, trying to further knowledge and have fun doing it. So I hope everybody that actually stuck around and watched the end of this video enjoyed what you saw. And I really like doing videos like this. And if you have any ideas for things like this that you would like me to test, I have lots of equipment and access to all kinds of things. So we can do pretty much anything that your imagination can come up with. Just let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can get to it. So again, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoy.